How's it going, my fellow Homo sapiens? It's your boy, the legendary Hadou, and I'm coming at you with a Lair of Darkness discussion. This and more coming at you next. Man, oh man. So, I've been playing the Lair of Darkness structure deck on Yu-Gi Pro for the past few days, and I have had quite a few hours of actually playing the deck. I mean, I've just been playing this deck over and over and over and over and trying so many different things. And this is just my views and thoughts of how I feel about the deck and what I kind of felt about the deck when I first heard about it. So let's kind of put a disclaimer here. This is me looking at the structure deck in the fact of, hey, you go out, you buy 3 structure decks, and you add 2 to the structure deck instead of taking the Lair of Darkness structure deck and only using a few cards as your engine. If you're looking for a discussion on using the Lair of Darkness as an engine, this is not going to be the video for you. If you're looking on what do you think the deck is going to be as the deck as a whole, the structure deck as a whole, this might be a video for you. So this is just some of my thoughts. So when I first saw the Lair of Darkness, when it first got announced and we first got the first few cards, I was ecstatic. You know, I was super excited. I was happy. I was amazed. And, you know, I have always been a real big fan of the viruses. I always kind of wanted to run a virus deck, but it just was never consistent in any other deck. So once you heard about the new Lair of Darkness, and it was going to have like all the viruses in it, you're like, oh my god, this is going to be incredible, this is going to be broken. And a lot of things on YouTube right now, a lot of people's like, man, this is broken, oh my god, it's insane. So that's what I thought at first. I was like, man, this shit is going to be super insane, it's going to be incredible, it's going to be badass, and your opponent's just not going to be able to do anything. I mean, just take a second and look here. You have a field spell that turns everything on the field dark, and you can tribute off your opponent monsters. You know, you have this big Diabolus monster that can special summon itself. Not just that, you can tribute a dark monster on the field, and your opponent can choose a card from their hand and put at the top or the bottom of their deck. You know, there's just so many really interesting things with the deck. But what I kind of want to focus on now is the pros and cons, because I really have had this many hours of just sitting here and playing this deck. Now, I was talking to a friend of mine's, and he was like, look at the OCG. It's not doing that much in OCG at the moment. It's topping a few events, but it's not topping like tier 0 or tier 1. It's just basically like a basic competitive structure deck. But my argument there is that the OCG has cards that we don't have, and the TCG has cards that the OCG don't have. Meaning that even if it doesn't do big in the OCG, it might do big in the TCG. But at the same time, you know, I do think that we do have some correlation sometimes when it comes down to certain decks. Now, with Lair of Darkness, I think it's strong, in my personal opinion. I think that is going to be a very strong deck, and I do feel like it's going to have some form of impact on the meta. Now, do I think it's going to be tier 0 or tier 1? The structure deck itself, not talking about it as a engine, no. You know, at first, I really felt like it was going to be tier 0. I'm going to be honest. But now, after playing for a while, I don't think it's going to be tier 0 or tier 1. Now, some of the cons with the deck is consistency. The biggest issue that I have had with this deck so far is consistency. There's times where I will open up with something like 2 field spells and a terraforming and like something random, you know, this I just can't use. Like, you know, like Awakening of Dragon, you know, Melody, the Awakening of Dragons, you know, it's like, I guess I can go and dish a card and get Diabolus, you know, get 2 copies of Diabolus. But like, when you open up something like that, it's very difficult to actually play, because when you look at your opponent, unless your opponent's setting 1 card in the back row and setting a monster and passing turn, yeah, you might have a chance, but this is Yu-Gi-Oh! For crying out loud. Your opponent's going to have a turn, they're going to masturbate for 5 minutes, and they're going to go for game. You know, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a very, very special summoning game. Now, yes, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has slowed down just a little bit with link mechanics, but it still basically has the same core mechanics. Like, people still can do some of the huge break my board type deck, where Lair of Darkness is more of a play the field spell, get your boss monster on the field, and set some traps to kind of protect yourself. Now, Another con that I will say with the deck is if you're top decking, if you're like really under, you have a horrible grind game, and that's what really, to me, it hurts. The consistency in the grind game. Because if you're top decking, if your opponent, if you set up a field spell, you set some back row, and your opponent's able to get rid of all that, and you're top decking, you know, you're gonna have a really difficult time playing the game. And so far with me top decking, it's very rare that I come back and win. Now, some of the pros of the deck is that using one card can just shut down your opponent's deck, you know, depending on what decks they're playing. You know, I was sitting back, I set something like, let's say I set like a Scarm or something, and I hit it with a full force virus, and just took my opponent whole hand. Or I'll wait till my opponent makes a board, and I'm like, oh, okay, I see what they're doing. And I'll hit it with a deck Debbie and then destroy their whole hand. You know, destroy their field, destroy their whole hand. They can't do anything. Or I turn around, I hit them with an eradication virus, and I call speller traps. You know, it's like, oh, you're playing something that's a lot of spells. You call that right, and you just end the game right then and there. And I really do like that. I love the idea that I can play one card and just end your whole hand. There's just nothing else you can do. And each card you draw, I get to look at it. And what I also like about that is I'm getting information about you. So I know if you're getting like a Mirror Force or something, you drew into a Mirror Force, I know what you're drawing. So if I hit you with a deck Debbie and it had no effect, and I got a full force down, I see that all your monsters has under 1500 defense, well, guess what? I'm gonna hit you with a full force next. So in that aspect, I feel like it's incredible. Not just that, I like the other pro I see here is the field spell. It turns everything on the field dark, so your opponent, if they're trying to go for something that's I think it's what, element specific, like, oh, you need a water for this, you need an earth for this, it kind of shuts them off. You know, it shuts them out of those plays. But not just that, it does allow you to tribute off your opponent, one of your opponent monsters once per turn. I really love that. And not just that, it gives tokens. Now, the biggest thing I really like here is a lot of cards that you tribute is actually cost. So let's say your opponent got a nice little field over there. They got their totally awesome with a hard dick sitting on the field with a frog on the top of his head. It's like, whatever you do, I'm going to negate it. You know, they're sitting there, they're feeling funny, you know, they're oh, what you going to do? Ha 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 ha. And you summon something like Lilith. Or you have something like a deck devastation virus set. And you got the field spell on the field. You like activate one of their effects, pay costs, and you trip it off there totally awesome. You know, it's like you can't respond, baby. You know, I really do like that. That's very, very strong, and your opponent's been punished for it. But overall, you know, even though those are some very nice pros, but I think that the cons really does kind of affect the deck very heavy because, you know, it sucks when you're just not having that consistency. Sometimes you might have some good monsters on the field, but you don't have your boss monster. Or sometimes you open up with a whole bunch of boss monsters and you don't have the little guys to tribute and get them out. Now, I have been hearing a few things. I've been listening to a lot of people. At first, I didn't like Lair of Darkness. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not a big fan of banishing cards just to draw. You know, that's just something I just never liked Lair of Darkness because I run roughly around 13 monsters in the deck. You know, that's not a lot of monsters. And if I play Lair of Darkness, I gotta banish something. You know, these monsters is something I want. It's not like a monster that I really just don't care for. So I have put Lair of Darkness in because I need more consistency. A lot of people say, well, play Pot of Despair. I'm sorry, man, but you banish 10 random cards. That's 10 cards off the top of your deck. This to draw 2. You know, if you banish your Diablos or your Liliths, you know, or your field spells, you know, to me personally, it's too big of a gamble, and that's the main reason I just can't run that. Like, you're playing with fire there, you know? Like, a Lair of Darkness to me is gambling with my life. If I'm in a shadow duel and I play Lair of Darkness, you know, I might be desperate. And not just that, I feel like, you know, if I don't have any dark monsters in my hand, I have a few cards in my hand and I'm really desperate, I might play a Lair of Darkness. And I have tried that on Dead Pro. Like, I have a whole bunch of Spell and Traps cards in my hand. I'm like, shoot, I got 6 Spell and Traps. One of these got to be a monster. A Lair of Darkness, bam, no monsters, dump my whole hand to the graveyard. Yes, it's a new play, but yeah, sometimes you get desperate every now and then. But right now, Lair of Darkness have helped out. Now, a card that a lot of people are saying do not play, is Pot of Duality. And in my personal opinion, I disagree. Now, one guy, he was telling me, and he gave up some really good points. He said by playing Pot of Duality, you can't get your tokens on the end phase, you can't special summon your Diabolus, and you can't play things like Monster Gate and Reasoning. But here's the thing. If I open up with nothing but a field spell, I'm still not getting any tokens. You know, and if I open up with a monster gate and I'm going first, you know, it's like, what am I tributing if I ain't got no monsters? So one thing that I have noticed with Pot is it's that good kind of like stall card. You know, like I have nothing, but it will allow me to set up my plays. So let's say if I have a field spell and I got nothing else, well, guess what? I play Pot, there's a possibility that I might rip into a Lilith, or there's a possibility that I might rip into one of my viruses that I can set face down and pray to God that my opponent doesn't blow up. But, you know, those are the main reasons I play Pot, to kind of help draw into something. Now, I was playing things like trade-in, but what ended up happening there, excuse me, was trade-in, I would have trade-in, but I would have no level 8s in my hand. It's like, oh shit, you know, what are you going to do? Is this a dead card? Or I'll have the level 8s, but no trade-in, you know? So I bumped trade-in down, and I put it at 1, and it was okay, but it's like a 1 of trade-in, it wasn't really doing much, you know? I'd rather just put Lair of Darkness in that I really just don't care too much for, and just get the extra 2 draws instantly. So I just took trade-in out. Now, one person said, well, play more level 8s. But here's my thing. Like, I don't want to play more level 8s that just for Lord, you know, just for trade-in. You know, like, if I'm not using those level 8s to actually get out and do some really, really big plays that I want to do, then there's no point in actually using them. Now, I have seen these, like, some good cards, like Nine-Tailed Fox. I think that's what it's called. I gotta look it up again. But it's pretty good. There's a lot of good cards that you can add to this structure deck and make it really, really good and enjoyable. You know, a lot of people say, well, you know, what about run enemy controller? I tried it. It's pretty nice. You know, what about things like Share the Pain? Really good stuff. It still doesn't help with the consistency. Yes, we have the King of Wickedness that searches out the field spell and also can search out Diabolus itself. You know, that's a great card. But at the same time, I think that we still need something else to make this deck a little bit more fluent. Because my biggest argument, my biggest dislike so far, and the really only biggest dislike I have, to be honest, is the consistency of the deck. But overall, it's a great deck. I'm still going to play it in competitive tournament. I'm going to at least try one full format of just playing the structured deck itself, adding to it. But I think that it does have a lot of promise. You know, things like Grim Grave Virus, at first I thought it was an incredible card. But at the end of the day, you know, it's like, it doesn't really destroy your opponent's hand. You know, it allows them... Yes, it allows them to send cards from their deck and they can't activate it that turn, but there's a lot of decks these days that they play in the graveyard, and that's a big issue with a lot of decks I go against. Is a lot of people can play in the graveyard. Like, I will destroy your whole hand, destroy your field, but now all your stuff from your hand in the field is in the graveyard and you have all these extra effects. So that's a big issue. The second biggest issue here is a lot of people are going to be playing hand traps in the Solemn. You know, the Solemn Brigade. You know, you're going to have your strikes, your solemn warnings, your solemn judgments. You know, that's going to be something that a lot of people are going to have to play around. I know and understand, like, oh yeah, if you hit them with a deck devastation, the hand traps are gone. Yes, there's many times where I hit somebody with a deck devastation. It was like, good game, baby. What you going to do? Destroyed your whole hand. But at the same time, you know, sometimes you need to draw to get some of those cards. And, you know, they got the Ash. Everyone's playing Ash, from crying out loud, you know. So... it's going to be definitely a challenge. You know, Mind Crush really does help in that aspect, because if you do deck Devi or Full Force or Eradicate somebody, you can look at their hand and you get to see what they're drawing for the next 3 turns. That's really awesome. Crush card is this bad? I mean, it works depending on what deck it is, but it's bad from what it used to be, you know? It's no longer 3 turns. It's only that 1 turn, and your opponent get to send up the 3 cards. And not just that, you can't do damage to them till your opponent's next end phase. Oh my god, that's just... it hurts. Like, don't get me wrong, I still like it. I still kind of side it, but you know, it's not something that I'm really super happy about. But one card that I feel that's pretty decent, a lot of people will probably say, is this a scrub play, is Gojin Match. I think Gojin Match is really good because you have the field spell, you play Gojin Match, they summon a monster, and the rest of the cards they got in their hand are going to be the regular archetype. And everything they have on the field is dark. So, you know, if you control a dark monster, you can't summon nothing else except dark monsters, you know? So that's going to be a really, really big thing there. If I'm going against a deck that's not playing anything, they're playing something besides darks, and yes, I think Gojin Match is going to be really, really awesome. But right now, I'm still working with the deck, and after I'm done playing just the deck itself, I might look into Lair of Darkness as trying it as a engine and putting it in other archetypes. But right now, I just kind of want to focus on the structure deck itself. So tell me what you think. How do you feel about the Lair of Darkness? Do you think it's still going to be tier 0? Do you think that it has the consistent issues that I'm talking about? Or do you think this is just God? Do you think this is going to destroy the format? You know, E-Dragons was never a threat. This is the threat, you know? Do you think this is going to be the next, like, broken deck here? I do feel that it's going to be a lot of people that's going to play this deck, hands down. I do feel like a lot of people are going to play this deck because it's budget. You know, it's a competitive deck for a budget. But that's just my own personal opinions. Please let me know what you think about it in the comment box below. Please rate, subscribe, comment, and share. It really helps the channel. Thanks for watching. Matane.